morning, everyone, and welcome to the community breakfast of the Community Breakfast Collaborative Undoing Racism Day 2020. This is our 10th event this year, and I welcome you all to it. This is our virtual event. We have 181 people registered. I'm still letting in some students, ministers. Our police chief, Chris Flanagan from Radnor Township, is here. Our superintendent from Radnor Township School District is here, Ken Batchelor. We have many distinguished participants, and we're really honored and grateful that all of you are here and participating today. I'm continuing to click everybody in to our group. And what we're going to start with first is Dr. Gitti Etamad is going to offer the opening prayer, and then I'll be back on with a couple of comments, and then we're going to start the simulation. You all will be in the breakout rooms to do the Bread for the World racial wealth gap learning simulation. So thank you all for being here. And Gitti, I will turn it over to you for the prayer.
This is a prayer. This is a prayer for humanity from Baha'i scripture. O thou kind Lord, thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In thy holy presence, they are all thy servants, and all mankind are sheltered beneath the tabernacle. All have gathered together at thy table of bounty. All are illumined through the light of thy providence. O God, thou art kind to all. Thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferred life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talent and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all, let the religions agree, and make the nation one, so that they may all see each other as one family, and the whole earth as one home. They may all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. O thou kind Father, gladden our hearts through the fragrance of thy love. Brighten our eyes through the light of thy guidance. Delight our ears with the melody of thy word, and shelter us all in the stronghold of thy providence. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Thou art the forgiving, and thou art one who overlooketh the shortcoming of all mankind.
Thank you, Gitti. I really appreciate having that to start us off and put us in the right approach and mood this morning as we begin our conversations. Our timeline is that we will first have the simulation, and then we'll have a short break so you can get more coffee or tea or what you're having for breakfast, but also to build in 5 minutes to reflect a bit before we move on to the panel discussion, and then we'll have the panel discussion after that. I want to say that we are having the event this year in memory of Barbara Butler, educator and activist who was a member of our steering committee in the early years of the community breakfast before we formed into a nonprofit. So we are having that in memory of her today. Reverend Carolyn Cavanis, who is the pastor of the Bethel AME Church in Ardmore, will be introducing the simulation. I scrolled the ground rules for discussion at the beginning, And we're all agreeing to abide by those ground rules in the breakout rooms to do a lot of listening, some reflection before speaking, sharing the mic, and those kinds of things. So if you're participating, I'm assuming that you are agreeing with those ground rules so we can discuss carefully with each other. We will sometimes make mistakes and we go forward from there. So Reverend Carolyn Cavanis, I am looking for you with your email or your name here. So I can unmute you. So maybe Carolyn, if you tell me what your name is on here, because people are in order. There, I see you. All right, Reverend Carolyn, you can introduce us to the simulation and then we'll go into the breakout rooms after that.
We say good morning to everyone, and we thank you so much for joining us for this community breakfast, certainly in a new way, but still continuing to bring so many of us together to have these important conversations. And so to be our launching point, our point of departure, we are going to take an encounter by use of the Bread for the World's racial wealth gap learning simulation, which with the objective that it will help us to understand the connections among racial equity, hunger, poverty, and wealth. So as part of your registration materials, you received a few policy cards, which we will then be a part of our breakout time together. And so if you would explore those in your groups, as well as a debriefing card, you're also welcome to explore some of the other policies. Time would not allow us to do the fullness of this simulation, but this is something to get our feet wet, to really stimulate conversation, but asking that we would just be very intentional about the ways in which we see intersections around race, equity, hunger, poverty, and wealth. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ann, as she will then take us to where we're going to go next.
All right, thank you. And we're asking everybody to focus on policies 8 and 13 first, because they're about education and voting. And then if you can get to a couple more of those, I'll have a reminder so that let you know the time. At 8:35, you would begin the debriefing portion. So I'll have a message pop up, time to switch over to the debriefing, and then you'll have about 10 minutes for that portion. So the breakout rooms are already prepared. If anyone is not assigned already to a breakout room for one reason or another, I'll move you into one after everybody else is there. So I'm going to open all the rooms.
morning to everyone. Our last panelist who we're going to make first is Taylor Muse. And so I wanted to just first of all say good morning to everyone on the call this morning. And thank you, Anne, and the Undoing Racism Day organizers for just putting together this wonderful time of reflection and interaction so that we can learn from one another. I know that these are such crazy, strange times, very challenging for so many of us on so many levels. And I am certain that the organizers, Anne, and the team that you work with, I'm sure that you all were just wondering how all of this was going to work out. Normally we're in the lovely Villanova room at Villanova University, and we have a wonderful breakfast and we're all able to be together. And I know many of us miss that, just that interpersonal and being able to sit at the table and to talk to one another and drink coffee together. But I want you to know, I can only speak for my breakout group, which of course was the best. You've got to decide that your breakout group is the best. But we had such just an insightful, rich conversation. I apologize to my group. I was just encouraging, and I want to say this to everyone, encouraging everyone to vote and to register to vote and not to be afraid to mail in your ballots and to do it early and to also to get people to register for the census. And so we were talking about all of those issues, and it was just such a wonderful, the simulation exercise was a wonderful way to get started this morning. So thank you for that. So as we all know, we're in the middle of such a historically notable moment. And while the Undoing Racism Day breakfast event has been happening officially for 10 years, and congratulations to the committee on that, so many people connected with this effort. So many have been wrestling with these issues for many, many years, even before the official start of the Undoing Racism Day breakfast. But the deplorable events surrounding the murder of George Floyd initiated a summer of racial reckoning filled with both peaceful and violent protests. And in the middle of the COVID pandemic, the nation and the world have been forced to face the consequences of centuries of systemic inequities, racial oppression, and social injustice. So the question on the table for this morning is, where do we go from here? So I'm grateful to be joined by the 5 distinguished engaging panelists that Anne mentioned to sort through these questions. And so what I'm gonna ask each of the panelists to do, beginning with Taylor Muse, is to introduce yourself so that everyone hears your voice. And I'm going to give you exactly a minute to be able to kind of just lay out your initial thoughts, and then we're going to open up with some questions. All right, so Taylor, I'd like you to get started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Muse. I am a recent graduate of Millersville University. I am also a member of the mainline chapter of the NAACP, and I do a lot of work with the youth in my neighborhood in terms of social justice and education. Education in general is something that's particularly close to my heart. I have goals of being an educator in the future, and I definitely think that that is one of the best ways that we can really make a change in this world. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. You did it in 37 seconds. So thank you so much. And we're going to come back to each of you. We're going to open up our discussion. I'd like to move now to Homa Tavangar, if you will introduce yourself.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you, everybody. I'm so happy to join you. I want to also just give a shout out to my breakout room, and also just to the diversity of this audience. This area on the main line has a reputation for no diversity. And I think when we all show up and we come together like this, we show this power. And I think there is such a power in the multi-generational and multiracial you know, facet of who is in this room to have this conversation. I was really struck by the issue of justice at the base of the lack of justice at the base of every scenario and the conversations that we just had. And there's this idea, and I draw this from the Baha'i writings, that the purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among people. So without that justice, and how do you get to that justice? You really can't get to it without a really honest assessment of what is happening. And so I hope that this begins an honest, courageous look at the power of justice and its utter lack in the systems that we know, and sort of leaning into how we might find that is partly from having some really courageous conversations. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. We're going to move to Chinwe. I'm going to mispronounce your last name. I want to do it right.
You're close. Onakiri.
Onakiri.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Chinwe, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lucky. It's such a privilege to be here. And I had the privilege of being in the breakout room with you. And I underscore 100% that it was a phenomenal, informative conversation and really set the stage for our discussion. So thank you for moderating that. So my name is Chinwe Onakiri. I serve as the System Director for Health Equity and Graduate Medical Education at Mainline Health. I also have the privilege of serving as the former board chair and current board member of HealthSpark Foundation. And I think one of the issues that I'm very passionate about, and it's part of my title and something that I'm thrilled to be able to focus on, is the issues around health equity. And I had the privilege of listening to Dr. Kamara Jones, who really talks about health equity as the assurance of the conditions for optimal health for all people. And I think one of the underpinnings of why we are struggling for health equity is around racism. And undoing racism is going to be core to achieving health equity. So I'm excited to have that discussion with all of you today, and looking at the intersections of health equity and undoing racism and social justice, and thinking about our journeys as we focus on these issues together. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to move to Ellie Davis.
Hi, my name is Ellie Davis, and I am a junior at Radnor High School. And first, I just want to say that I am thrilled to be here, and that's not just because I'm missing school. And at my high school, I am the co-founder of the League of Women Voters student chapter, whose whole mission is to register young voters and encourage civic engagement. And then also, as a student journalist, I've followed the story of school funding in Pennsylvania and the racial disparities that go along with that, specifically in Delaware County. And you know, my breakout room too had some wonderful discussion. And you know, my first reaction looking at the policies is that it's troubling to see the correlation between the historic systemic racism and how we can see that playing out within Delaware County and our local community, you know, specifically with school funding.
Thank you so much, Ellie. I'm glad you're missing school so that you can be with us. That's wonderful. And our last but not least, our last panelist is Otis Fields. And I'm going to ask him to introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Otis Fields. I attend Hampton University. I'm in the nursing program. I'm a junior, and I'm just excited to be here today to hear everyone's perspective on the topics that we will be talking today, dealing with racism and stuff like that. I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to be here and to view my opinion on it too.
Thank you, Otis, and thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to get into these discussions, to our discussion today. And I love the fact that you're all sort of coming at this question about where do we go from here, from your own unique perspective and your own strengths and sort of the different aspects of life, right? So whether we're talking about health or education, or whether we're talking about policy, or what even Ellie, when you raise this issue about journalism, right? As a student journalist, the way that we get information, where do we go from here? And so I'd like to open up. So one of the things that I was thinking about is the ways that early on, and I'm sure everybody paid attention to this, we got all kinds of statements from organizations, from institutions, from communities early in the summer and throughout the summer of folks standing with people, you know, solidarity, all of this. But for me, the question is always about concrete strategies, right? Action items, actionable items. So I want to know, sort of from each of your perspectives, where do you see sort of actionable, concrete, either policies or strategies or programs or whatever it is that you see that can be put into place to move us forward along this journey towards racial and social equity. So if you don't mind, since we're on Zoom and it's hard for us to talk all over each other, I'll call you out if you don't mind. I'm gonna ask Taylor if you'll go first, and then I'll make sure that everyone has a chance to answer that question. So make sure you unmute.
Yeah. So I sort of touched on it briefly in my introduction, but I definitely believe personally that one of the main ways we can really make a difference is to educate the masses in terms of our history of racial inequality and injustice. I think a lot of times it's easy to call very specific examples from the civil rights movement or otherwise, but there are a lot of things that a lot of people don't know that we rarely call out to. And I think that's one of the main ways to sort of address the problems of our past so that we don't make those mistakes again, and so that we are all aware of the mistakes that have been made so that no one can sort of secretly make them again, and move forward from there.
Taylor, I'd like to ask you a follow-up question. Do you, are you speaking very specifically about a specific course, let's say in high schools or in middle schools? Are you thinking about higher education curricula? How are you seeing this education unfolding?
I'm definitely seeing this probably in the history courses at the appropriate levels, but I don't think these are things that should be shied away from in the middle school level, especially not at the high school level, where students are becoming old enough to vote and form opinions for themselves and make decisions for themselves. I think that it has to be addressed, like I said, appropriately, but with honesty and with integrity. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And can I ask you one other question? What are you doing now, Taylor? Because you're a recent college graduate, and the pandemic, I'm sure, has hit you hard in the face, right? What's going on for you now?
I've currently been looking into jobs in the local school districts. Like I said, I have goals of being an educator. I hope to get my master's in education in the future. That was initially my plan, but like you said, COVID sort of disrupted that. So I'm looking to get a job in an educational field where I can prepare myself for a career in education. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I'd like to, if the other panelists don't mind, I'd like to sort of stick with this younger group for a second, because I really want to sort of see these trends the way that these who are either in high school or recently graduated or in college. So Otis, I'd like to move to you, who are studying currently at Hampton.
Yes, ma'am. Currently I am. I feel like we shy away from it. Like I I went to a public high school, you know, it wasn't many, like, it wasn't really diverse. And like, we all knew that racism exists and opportunities would be different for us and stuff like that, but we don't talk about it. I feel like people are not scared, but it's like you don't dress it because you've been told that since you was like born there, or like we don't talk about all the things that be happening around us like that. I feel like people are scared to talk about it. Like it's not enough people to like address that topic in the room. You know, it'd be that bug that everybody know exists, is that bug, but nobody want to squash that bug or try to let that bug out. Everybody just want to leave the bug in the room, and I feel like that's the biggest problem with it. Like, um,
I love
when I
that analogy about a bug
yeah
in a room,
yeah
right?
like nobody
We've
want to
all
nobody.
been there, right?
Yeah, nobody wants to let the bug out. Like, you know, usually you want to get the bug out as quick as possible. Nobody wants to let the bug out. And when I went to Valley Forge, you know, I didn't experience racism as much as I thought would be on campus. I actually experienced it more off campus, but you know, I never had uh like I view white people as bad people or anything like that. I feel like most white people don't know about it. They don't know like how racism, they probably don't pay it no mind, because I met a couple of white people who spoke up about it, but it's like they weren't being ignorant. They just haven't been exposed to it. I mean, if you're a white person growing up in your home and nobody's talking about it, then how would you ever know it exists? Like, how would you ever know that like you have a white privilege? So
Mhm.
you would never know if nobody addresses it. So I feel like more people need to talk about it and stuff like that. That's how I
This
really feel about it.
question, I love what you're talking about, this own norm. If your own norm exists within a certain bubble or within a certain sphere, how are you going to know? No.
Mhm.
Can I ask you a question? When did you go to Valley Forge? Is it still called Valley Forge Military Academy? Is that what it's called?
Academy and college.
Academy and college.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you go? Grade.
I just graduated. I just graduated recently.
And
Last fall.
did you
I mean,
start
last
as a
spring.
ninth grader?
No, ma'am. I transferred up there to go play football. I believe I went up there 2018, because I
Okay.
graduated 2017. I took a year off out of high school, so I was up there from 2018 to 2020. Yeah,
Okay.
2020, 2021. But yeah.
Thank you for your perspective. I'm going to come back to you.
Mhm.
I really, I appreciate your perspective about sort of calling out, as you say, addressing the bug in the room, or
Mhm.
whether we might even talk about the elephant in the room, right? That it's right there and that everyone is seeing it, but nobody's necessarily talking about it. Ellie, can I get you in on this question about what you think is a concrete strategy for moving forward?
Yeah, so I want to go back to voting with this, and I think Otis's metaphor of the bug in the room is really good, because we talked about policy 13, these voter ID laws, and you know, in the past those have kind of been elephants, but in Pennsylvania today they've shrunken down to sort of bugs, so they're hard to identify, but they're real policies that are stopping people from voting. And one of these things that I've observed trying to register voters and get people to vote in the primary and now in the general election is that with the prevalence of mail-in voting, you know, normally you only need an ID when you register to vote in Pennsylvania. Not every year, you know, when you go to the polls, you don't have to show your ID. But when you're trying to request a mail-in ballot, in that online form, you need a form of identification. So if you don't have a driver's license, you need a printer, because you need to print it out and use your social security number and sign it. And if you don't have a printer or internet access, you have to call your county elections office. But how are you going to find that number without internet access? So it's these types of policies of requiring that driver's license to apply for a mail-in ballot that are sort of the bugs in the room stopping people from voting. So I think a good concrete step forward is that we have to tackle these policies one at a time that are slowly adding up to thousands of people who are being disenfranchised.
Ellie, thank you so much for raising that question, because I want to be completely honest. When we voted in the primary election and I did a mail-in ballot, it didn't even occur to me that folks without identification, I just whipped out my license, wrote down the number, did whatever. It is not until you're saying that right now that I had even thought about those barriers to access, right? I was thinking about it more in terms of showing an ID when you go to vote. I had not considered it when you're doing a ballot. My phone was right next to me. I whipped out my license and I just did what I would do as if I were doing something online and buying something online with a credit card, right? These ways that there are these sort of, you say, the elephants have now become bugs. Otis, you gave us a great analogy, right? That they have shut down, but they also are both irritating but can be invisible, right? And I think it's wonderful. I want to get Homa and Chinwe, I want to get your perspective here. I mean, we've heard from sort of our wonderful young voices, and I must say, if you all are gonna carry us forward, I am very encouraged. I'm very delighted. Yeah, I agree. I think you guys are magnificent. I wanna get both of you, Homa, if you could go first and just sort of your reflections and thought about all of this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate Taylor, Otis, Ellie, all of you who are, I guess under 30, under 40 even, who are engaged and in concrete ways. What a difference. One of the things I think about when you talk about, what concrete things can we do? I think oftentimes people will say, well, just tell me what I have to do. And that's kind of a problem, because it's up to each of us to have the responsibility to figure out, to educate ourselves. And I totally believe in education across the life cycle. So from anti-racist baby to continuing adult education, there is so much to continuously learn and do. And it's exciting to live in that way, to constantly have these aha moments. But it's also deeply painful because we realize how much, frankly, white supremacy is baked into the foundation of this country. And that's a hard thing to confront. I think what's interesting when we say, well, just tell me what I have to do, give me a concrete step, it is coming from a sincere place, but it almost goes back to this kind of American culture of like microwavable, meals. Like the solution is not pop it in the microwave and you have a meal that comes out. It is really, I think it's deeply internal as much as it is systemic and social. And I want to mention one thing about that bug. I think that like that bug, it's a little bit reminds me of like the idea of what is a microaggression. Mm-hmm. And a microaggression, you can think of it a little bit like a mosquito bite. Mm-hmm. And a mosquito bite, it might be just like one bite and it's annoying, like somebody makes a comment about my name or, oh, where are you really from? Or, whatever it might be, or, oh, you really are articulate. That one bug bite might feel, it might not be a big deal. But the reality is where there's one, there are probably many more. And after a while, if you are constantly getting bit by that tiny little bug, you start to develop a sensitivity, more serious West Nile virus, malaria. These things come out of a little mosquito too. So it isn't so micro, that little bug is serious. So I love that metaphor, and it really gets me thinking about how important that is.
Homa, thank you. That was beautifully ties things together. And I 100% concur that there is not a microwavable answer to these questions, right? And I love that you are calling us to lifelong learning. Shout out to Ibram Kendi when you talked about Anti-Racist Baby, right? That is his book that helps parents begin these conversations with their children about how to be an anti-racist and how you can start that sort of from the toddler age, from the preschool age. And of course, I also want to raise his other book, which so many of us have been reading and talking about, and that is How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I also want to encourage folks to read, when we're talking about history, going back to Taylor's initial comment about what we don't know and how we need education, Ibram Kendi's book, which was his first one, Stamped from the Beginning, is an amazing history of racism in America, and I recommend it. It is long, it is big.
It's the best book.
It is a great book.
Yeah.
You may have to wait a minute for it on Amazon because everybody has gone out to Amazon and is, you know.
I heard that Spotify is offering it for free as an Audible book so that everybody can learn their history.
Get it. So Chinwe, I'm going to give you the title again. Someone just asked. The first book is Anti-Racist Baby. The second is How to Be an Anti-Racist. And the third is Stamped, like a stamp, Stamped from the Beginning. All by Ibram, I-B-R-A-M, Kendi, K-E-N-D-I. Chinwe, I'm going to give you the last word, and unfortunately we're going to bring this to a conclusion, but I know that you're going to tell us something really good about our health and about health.
Well, thank you. It's again an honor to be able to speak with you and to follow such amazing insights and thoughts around how we can do this work and collaborate is very powerful. I think one of the things that you know, Otis and Ellie and Taylor and Homa raised is this idea of being cognizant and focusing consistently on recognizing and rectifying historical injustices, and the need to do that with persistence and with a commitment. The fact that, you know, we have many, and I think you talked about this at the beginning, have seen statements around anti-racism from large and small organizations. Now the question is, well, now what? Now that we have that commitment, how do we operationalize that in a way that actually moves us forward, stamps out racism, and gets us to optimal care for all people, and really recognizing how we can assure that the conditions for optimal health for all people are in place. And so I think one of the ways that Mainline Health has been doing it, one of the ways that HealthSpark has been doing this is really thinking about how we build a strong safety net. How do we connect organizations that are committed to the needs of our community and knit those organizations together and have it so that we are embedding issues around respect and being connected and person-centered and impactful and equitable into our mission. And so, for example, at Mainline Health, we've embedded the work of addressing health equity and disparities into our mission and values. The same has been done for HealthSpark Foundation. And then the next step is thinking about how do we embed that into our strategic plan? How do we make our leaders accountable to addressing disparities in care? Because if we have disparities, we have inequities and we have poor quality of care. So this is all very good, and it requires us to go beyond the walls of our hospitals into our communities and start to think about the policies that we have internally and the policies externally that lead to poor outcomes. I think the issues around COVID have just unearthed the moral injustices that are related to health equity. And so that has been, I think, an opportunity for us to double down on our efforts. So I think it starts about creating a culture of social justice within our organizations. You talked about creating that climate. I think that's key. I think there's learning from infant to adulthood and beyond that happens within our organizations. and also from things around our hiring and retention that we talked about in our breakout groups. So we need to take all of those policies that we have and look at it with an equity lens and make a commitment and be transparent to the community to show that we're being accountable for that work. So I'll end there. This has been a phenomenal conversation and discussion, and thank you for your leadership in moderating it.
Thank you so much, Chinwe. I am so grateful to each of the panelists. Thank you, Taylor and Ellie and Otis and Homa and Chinwe. I want to thank you all. You all are brilliant and committed. And I am not saying this, I'm not saying this tongue in cheek. I feel like if we are going to move forward with you all at the helm, with all of your brilliance and your thinking about these issues so both wide-rangingly and with depth, I feel hopeful that that we can make change and impact. So thank you so much. I think I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Carolyn. Is that right, Anne?
Yep.
So again, thank you for the opportunity and thank you all for your wonderful insights. Reverend Carolyn, I'm turning it over to you.
So we thank our amazing panel for leading us this morning. We certainly has us thinking, but also taking those practical steps that are so necessary for being agents of change. I also have been using the word that in this work that we're called to be pivot changers, to make changes, to adapt, but also to be innovators. And so we thank you again for taking these moments, and we salute also the work of our founder, Ann Minicozy, and thank you for just joining us this morning. Just want to also share that in this work is also that all of us have a part, all of us play, are critical to being the change that we desire to see in the world. And so let us have a renewed commitment for this work. We also hope that you've made some new friends, some new connections, and that these conversations will continue as they're so needed in our local community, in our schools, the municipalities, and government, the various social and private sectors that are present with us. So this, hopefully, we pray this will not be the ending, but will be the start of a new beginning, that will continue to come together as a mainline community and being that beloved community that Dr. King so much cared and did so much to inspire. And so let us unite our spirits in prayer in this moment. I will lift up a prayer for justice from the United Church of Christ. Grant us, Lord God, a vision of your world as your love would have it. A world where the weak are protected and none go hungry or poor. A world where the riches of creation are shared and everyone can enjoy them. A world where different races and cultures live in harmony and mutual respect. A world where peace is built with justice and justice is guided by love. Give us the inspiration and courage to build it through the Creator. Amen. Also, to depart us, as many of us formally begin our day, we invite you to tune into I Need You to Survive, performed by a group of young people here at Bethel AME Church of Ardent.
I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we'll see you next year, September 22, one way or another. God bless and thank you, everybody.